This is the Louie Tee Network.
In the lab room.
The views and opinions shared on this program are that of Louie Tee and In the Lab Room alone and should be taken exactly as they are given. If you are soft, easily offended, or can't listen to the criticism of your team, this program is not intended for you. This is pure, unadulterated football talk for the hardcore fan. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me on the series finale of the 2014 NFL Lab Reports. You got to finish up with the best, and the Seattle Seahawks are the best of the rest. And so, the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks have the final say in this series. So we're traveling out to the North Pacific West to talk about the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks here on the 2014 NFL Lab Reports. Go Hawks! Strengths for this Seattle Seahawks football team. And anytime you win the Super Bowl, you did a lot right. Whether it's offensively, defensively, special teams, it doesn't matter. You did a lot right. Some areas better than others. Nonetheless, you did a lot right. And this Seattle Seahawks team is no different. The first thing that jumps off the page, and it always does, turnover differential. Seahawks were the absolute best in the league a season ago in turnover ratio, plus 20. How do you lose when you're a plus 20? That's a really good question. Seattle Seahawks got it done last season. And they got it done because they forced turnovers and they took care of the football. And that will take us to our next strength here in a second, but let me finish harping on 20 turnovers in the positive. Let me harp on this for a second, because that is tremendous. And you rarely see a team 20 turnovers or more over the plus minus category. It's just asinine to think how good this team was at forcing turnovers. And again, there are two sides to this category. One, you have to take care of the football yourself. And two, you got to force turnovers. The Seahawks did both. Plus 20 is going to win you a lot of games. Plus 10, plus 11, going to win you a lot of games. Plus 5, going to put you in a position to win games. Plus 20, you win. You win. When you force that many turnovers and you don't turn it over yourself, you win. And guess what the Seattle Seahawks did last year? Yeah. You guessed it. They won. You go on to the next strength of this team, and I told you it was a perfect segue from the plus 20 differential, and it's offensive efficiency. This is an offense that is extremely efficient. They don't make a lot of careless mistakes with the football. Now, they make a lot of mistakes, and we'll talk about those a little bit later on, but not with the football. That's the most important one. If you can avoid mistakes with the football, on the offensive side of things, you can overcome mistakes in the form of penalties, which the Seahawks did in 2013. However, you cannot overcome mistakes often with the football. Those are catastrophic. Seahawks didn't do that. They didn't have turnovers. Russell Wilson, 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions last year. And the Seahawks as a team, 27 touchdowns passing, 9 interceptions. They got it done. That equaled out after you factor in the 63% completion percentage and you factor in all of the passing yards and all the good things that they did offensively. That amounts to 102 passer rating, which is phenomenal in this league. And again, they don't ask a lot of Russell Wilson. This passing offense, when you talk about yardage per game and total yards, this passing offense was in the bottom third of the league. But it's the efficiency that gets you every single time. Because of all those teams that's at the bottom in the passing department, the Seattle Seahawks are the only one with efficient numbers, with the completion percentage that's up over 60, with the interception numbers that are extremely low, with the touchdown numbers that are right around where you want them to be, close to 30. They're the only team that's efficient, that's there for a reason. The Seattle Seahawks are there because they want to be there. The rest of those teams are there because they don't have a choice but to be there. They're not good enough to ascend at passing the football. Seattle Seahawks, they don't want to move. They don't need to move because the running game is such a big part of what they do offensively. All they ask Russell Wilson to do is take care of the football. And when you get an opportunity, you strike. Strike while the iron's hot. He did that. This offense is efficient. And that's why they won the Super Bowl a season ago. You move on to the next strength of this team. It's special teams, man. It's special teams. You got to do a lot right. To win the Super Bowl, you got to win at all 3 phases of the game in the Seattle Seahawks. They win at all 3 phases of the game. I just talked about the offense and how they were able to do things. I talked about the defense briefly and them being plus 20 in the turnover differential. And that's an offense and defense thing. That's the team coming together as a whole. We'll talk about the defense. You know we're going to talk about the defense here in a second. But special teams, don't forget about that. Don't forget about them. They're one of the most important parts of this thing. We love to overlook special teams, but if your special teams unit is getting it done, it just heightens your ability to win in this league. And the Seahawks, their punter, John Ryan, gets it done. That's why the Seattle Seahawks had 2 safeties last year. You don't get 2 safeties without your punter being a big part of the reason why. Now, you might have a team snap the ball over their punter's head and the ball goes into the end zone and they kick it out of the back of the end zone. It's a safety. But most times, you got to earn your safeties. You got to pin a team down inside the 5 and then your defense has to come out and get it done. That's what this Seahawks team did. And John Ryan is a big part of that. So he's a factor on special teams. What about Stephen Hauschka? One of the best field goal kickers in the league, knocked it home at a 93% clip last year. What more do you want from that guy? He gets it done in inclement weather, whether it's raining or it's sunny, whether it's cold, whether it's 55 yards or it's 45 yards. Stephen Hauschka is the man. He's a definite strength on that special teams unit. Percival Harvin, when healthy, is dangerous. He is an absolute weapon when healthy. Golden Tate helped you out a season ago. He's no longer there, but you'll be fine. You will be fine. Your special teams unit is a strength. We saw it in the Super Bowl. If you continue to do what you did last year on special teams, you're going to be just fine if you are Seattle. And last but not least, saving the best for last, you knew what was coming next. This Seattle Seahawks defense is legit. Too legit to quit. Hey, hey. No, seriously. This defense is at the top of their game. You know you're good when the league starts setting rules and parameters and enforcing things harshly because of what you've done. Look what you done, Seattle. Look what you done. You done messed it up for everybody, man. Being all physical, smacking teams in the mouth, roughing guys up, hitting quarterbacks, blowing teams out in the Super Bowl 43-8. Look what you done started, man. Then made Raj go and tell the officials, hey, ratchet it up a little bit, man. Stop with all the physicalness. We can't have teams getting blown out in our Super Bowls. That Super Bowl was a joke. Look what y'all done did, man. Kudos to you, Seattle, man. If I had a brewski in my hand, this one would be for you. But let's talk about this. I don't want to go too in-depth with how good this defense is because we be here all day. And I'm not trying to keep you here any longer than I need to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my crack staff get on the case, give me some hardcore numbers, just the ones that I think are the most pertinent. Look, again, I could sit here and read off to you every number that jumps off the page. We'd be here for about 2.5 hours. We don't need to do that. So I'll take the ones that make the most sense, that kind of illustrate why this defense is as good as it is. And I'll get my crack staff on it. And what do you know? Here it is. So I'll read off the stats defensively that I feel like separates this defense from the rest of the defenses in the league and make them the absolute best in the business. So first things first, 14.1 points per game given up. Nobody does it better. As a matter of fact, the next closest team is the Carolina Panthers, giving up 15.1. So essentially, you're telling me you're only giving up 2 touchdowns a game. That's it. That's it. If you can't hold the Seattle Seahawks to 17 points, you lose. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? 14 points a game? Hell, the Denver Broncos scored 21 in the first half. If you blink twice, they might score that in the first quarter. 14 a game? Is that all teams can muster against the Seattle Seahawks? No wonder they won the Super Bowl. That's the most important stat right there. I could just stop right there, not read another thing, and you get it. But you don't got it. So I continue to read on. 28 interceptions last year, by far the best. And 3 of those went to the crib. So they forced the issue. And we know how good the Legion of Boom is. We know how they can get pressure on the quarterback, but you still got to go out and get results. 28 interceptions sounds like results to me. And so this team got it there. And not only did they force 28 interceptions, they only gave up 16 touchdowns passing last year. That was good enough for second best, only trailing the Tennessee Titans, and they're 15. So this Seattle Seahawks defense, they weren't. And again, when you're only giving up 14, you know you're not giving up a lot. You're not giving up a lot of passing touchdowns. It's not happening. When you're only giving up 14 points a game, you know that number is going to be dental floss thin. And it was. 2 safeties, I already talked about that. With the special teams and John Ryan punting the football. Never trust a man with 2 first names. That's why you can't trust a guy like John Ryan. However, 2 safeties, that's pretty big. Again, anytime you can get points in this league, anytime you can flip the script, change the momentum of the game, that's what safeties do. Safeties change the momentum and the complexity of a game in a heartbeat. Not only is it 2 points, you get the football back on a free kick and you're about to get really good field position. So safeties change the game. 11 fumble recoveries. You forced 13 last year. You scooped up 11 of them. 1 of them went to the house. So again, forcing turnovers, forcing the issue, taking advantage of opportunities that come your way. That's what this Seattle Seahawks defense did best. They forced mistakes and then they capitalized off of them. 44 sacks, getting after the quarterback. In this league, that is paramount. You must get after the other team's quarterback. Seattle did that. They forced the issue. That's why you get all the turnovers that we've been talking about thus far. And last but not least, I talked about this prior to getting to the defense, but I'll just comb over it again. 63 passer rating. Again, best in the league. And just to give you a little bit of perspective on how good that is, the next closest team in the league had a 74 passer rating. Nobody else was even in the 60s. We're talking 11 points lower than the rest of the NFL. That's how good this Seattle Seahawks pass defense and defense in general was a season ago. You understand now how these guys hoisted the Lombardi Trophy? I hope you do. If you don't, I can't do anything else for you. I can't explain it anymore. However, there are some things they do need to clean up. So we'll move on from the strengths of the Seattle Seahawks team to their weaknesses. Remember I talked about how the Seattle Seahawks made mistakes on offense, but they were mistakes that they could overcome because it wasn't mistakes with the football? Those mistakes that I was talking about, they were penalties. And my gosh, did the Seattle Seahawks have a lot of them. If there's one Achilles heel of this football team, it's that they're very undisciplined. A lot of penalties in Seattle. That's one thing you notice when you watch a Seattle Seahawks game. There's a lot of penalties. False starts, holdings, a lot of illegal formations, and just a lot of nonsense from a team that is this good you just don't expect it. But it happens. 128 penalties for over 1,100 yards, closer to 1,200 yards. Both led the league. Yikes. Ouch. You don't want, that's the one thing you don't want to lead the league in. Maybe aside from turnovers. You don't want to lead the league in penalties, offensively or defensively, and this was offensive penalties. They've got to clean that up. That is egregious. Especially for a team this good, you expect them to be more disciplined than that. And so if there's one glaring weakness on this team, it's the inability to stop hurting yourself on offense with penalties. Clean that up, and this could be one of those flawless teams that just seems to get it done week in and week out. And there's one more thing that kind of perturbed me. It's not that big of an issue, and they've been working to rectify this problem, so you're hoping that it's better in 2014 than it was in 2013, and that's QB pressures. Last year, Russell Wilson hit the deck 94 times. Of those 94 hits, 44 of them resulted in sacks. Way too many for a team this good, especially one that doesn't throw the football as much as the rest of the league. So you would expect those numbers to be exponentially lower just because of the amount of times you run the football in any given contest. So if you are the Seattle Seahawks, and like I said, you've done a good job of addressing that situation in the offseason, and you dealt with a lot of injuries last year. Let's not kid ourselves here. Your offensive line was banged up. But I don't care. That's why you have depth, and that's why you need guys to stay healthy either way. That's got to be addressed, and you have addressed it. Let's see if a guy like Justin Britt comes in and helps you fortify your offensive line. Let's see if guys can stay healthy and not be in the pink room a lot this year. Let's see if guys can keep Russell Wilson upright so he's not running for his life. See if you can keep him in the pocket slinging the football around. So those are your weaknesses in Seattle. We move on from there to camp battles. As you see behind me, I have my big board listing the camp battles for this Seattle Seahawks team as well as the experiment. Now we'll start with the camp battles, run down the list of things that I want to talk about. And this isn't necessarily all camp battles as much as it is guys vying to make the roster and positions that I think are noteworthy that we need to discuss. We start at the quarterback position, and it's Russell Wilson, Tavares Jackson, and Terrell Pryor. Now, the only intriguing thing here is, will the Seahawks keep 3 quarterbacks? They traded for Terrell Pryor in the offseason, swapped a 7th rounder with the Raiders to acquire him. They want him to make this roster. Problem is, he hasn't shown that quantum leap as a passer, but the athleticism is unquestioned. You saw him scramble for a touchdown in a preseason game earlier this year against San Diego. And so you know that there are some things that he brings to the table that you can't coach. However, he's a quarterback. And usually that means you have to throw the football and throw it well, which is something he doesn't do. So the question then becomes, can you afford to keep 3 quarterbacks on a talent-rich roster like the one you have, bypass someone that can actually help you in 2014 for a guy that probably won't take the headset off and put the clipboard down? I don't think you need to keep Terrell. Who else is going to beat your door down for the services of Terrell Pryor, huh? I don't see anybody else beating your door down and saying, hey, I'll take him off your hands. Let the kid go. If he really wants to play in this league, he'll keep himself in shape. If you need to, I think he's still practice squad eligible, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is his 3rd season in the league. Even if he's not, let him go. He'll still be around. Where is he going to go? He can't throw the football. He'll be around. Don't waste. And if do you want me to be honest with you? You want to waste a roster spot on a 3rd quarterback? Give it to B.J. Daniels. He can run and he can throw the football better than Terrell Pryor. So that's how I feel about that. But your first 2 positions at the quarterback spot, they're solidified. Got your starter in Russell Wilson. You got your backup in Tavares Jackson. To me, that's all you need. You don't need another thing out there, wasting a roster spot on a 3rd quarterback. For what? For what? Fullback. Now, this is a situation where you look at this position, and Derek Coleman right now is the odds-on favorite to make this roster as a fullback. Spencer Ware is in the discussion, but really the Seahawks list him as and view him as a running back, and I think because of that distinction, he's not going to make the roster. Because I don't see you keeping any more than 3 backs. And I don't see why you would keep any more than the 3 backs that you have in Beast Mode, Marshawn Lynch. You have Robert Turbin and, of course, Christine Michaels. So you don't need any more running backs. You got all the running backs you need. Spencer Ware, I don't think he's making this roster. I think Derek Coleman is going to be the only fullback on this team. And Spencer Ware doesn't lead block well enough. And he's not really a fullback. He's a running back. With a big frame, I see Derek Coleman being the fullback on this football team. You move on to wide receiver. And this is a position that you could easily see a number of guys making this roster. I didn't put all the players up here because I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp of who's going to make this roster. There are some other guys in contention that I didn't put up here, but again, I don't think they're going to make it. Here's why. Percy Harvin, Doug Baldwin, Jermaine Kearse, Paul Richardson, Ricardo Lockett, Brian Walters, and Kevin Norwood are the 7 guys that I think have a realistic shot of making this roster. Now, I think that 6 receivers are going to be on this roster. Percival, lock. Baldwin, lock. Both of these guys just received contracts not too long ago. Percy last offseason, Doug this offseason. So they're not going anywhere. Jermaine Kearse, core special teamer, as well as a guy that has performed well for you when he has been given the opportunity to play receiver. He's on the roster. Paul Richardson, first-round pick out of Colorado, speedster, takes the top off the defense. He's not going anywhere. Ricardo Lockett, big kid, 6'5", sub 4.4 40. All the skills and raw ability you're looking for. Inconsistent, however, he's shown flashes. And you can't ignore the size and the speed. I think Ricardo Lockett is on this roster as well. So that's 5 receivers right there. Keep in mind, Kevin Norwood, and this is how we like to do, out of sight, out of mind. He's got a foot injury, had surgery. He's out for a little while. But he's on this team. You're not putting him on the PUP list. So he'll be back. And I think you got an early bye, if I'm not mistaken, week 4 bye. So why not have this kid back after week 5 or after week 4, after the bye week? He's going to be on the roster. That's 6 right there. You also have Brian Walters in the discussion, but I think Kevin Norwood and Ricardo Lockett are going to round out this group. Those will be your 6 receivers. You keep it moving if you are the Seattle Seahawks. So you go on to the offensive line, and this was a big issue last season. You know, a lot of influx with this line, a lot of guys in and out of the lineup, not a lot of guys staying healthy, which equaled Russell Wilson running for his life. He's been running a little bit this year as well, but some injuries early on maybe caused a little bit of that. So Russell Okung, James Carpenter, Max Unger, J.R. Sweezy, Justin Britt, Stephen Schilling, Kalen Hoffman, Numel Jean-Pierre, Alvin Bailey, Eric Winston, and Gary Gilliam. Now, the first 5 are your starters. They're not going anywhere. Those are unquestioned. So then you move on to Stephen Schilling and Kalen Hoffman. These are the 2 I think are battling for potentially one spot. I think that Stephen Schilling, he plays both guard and center. And I think you like that versatility. But the cable guy, Tom Cable, your offensive line coach, loves Kalen Hoffman's aggressiveness. He's got a nasty streak. You know how these offensive line coaches are. They love the nasty streaks in guys. And so Kalen Hoffman is a favorite of Tom Cable. Wouldn't be surprised if he was able to beat out a guy like Stephen Schilling and get on this roster. Numel Jean-Pierre is going to be around. He provides depth for you, as well as Alvin Bailey. Eric Winston is a guy you signed, only going to cost you $1 million, gives you some swing tackle ability. I expect him to be on his roster. And then Gary Gilliam is a player that you like. His athleticism was an ex-tight end at Penn State, so he might actually make the roster just off of his athleticism alone. So I think this group is pretty much set, with the exception of Stephen Schilling and Kalen Hoffman. I think those 2 are battling for potentially one roster spot on this football team. You move on to the cornerback position, and we know how big of a position this is in Seattle and how much of the team's success hinges upon this position, so we have to talk about it. Richard Sherman, Byron Maxwell, Jeremy Lane, Tyrell Simon, Phillip Adams, and A.J. Jefferson. Seahawks are going to have to make a TD here. What's a TD, you ask? A tough decision, man. We know the first 4 are locks. Sherman, Maxwell, Lane looks really good, like he's going to be your nickel corner, and he looks like he's primed and poised to make a heck of a breakout in 2014. Simon was injured last year. He's looking to have a bounce back year this year. You're expecting a lot out of him. So now it comes down to Phillip Adams and A.J. Jefferson. Now, if A.J. Jefferson didn't get injured in the last preseason game, I think he would be a lock to make this roster, and I think Phillip Adams, the ex-Oakland Raider, would be the odd man out. However, Jefferson has injured himself, probably not going to be back until week 3 or 4 or 5 of the regular season, which opens up a roster spot for a guy like Phillip Adams. Now, here's the question that you have to ask yourself. Do you bring A.J. Jefferson back after the injury and get rid of Phillip Adams? Or do you put A.J. Jefferson on IR, hold on to him, and leave Phillip Adams as your 5th corner for the remainder of the season? Just a little food for thought. You do the dishes. So, those are your camp battles. We move on to the experiment in Seattle, and I have dubbed it Hawks on a Mission. They're definitely on a mission in 2014. Not many teams can repeat in this league. It's tough to do, especially when you got the target squarely on your chest and on your back. Week in, week out, you're everybody's Super Bowl. Hard to get up each and every week for these teams around this league. So can the Seahawks do it? We will see. Let's get to the experiment and find out how this can be attained. After winning the Super Bowl last season so convincingly, can the Seattle Seahawks live up to the expectations and repeat as NFC West and Super Bowl champions? That's it. That's the question right there. Everybody's expecting greatness out of this football team. I've heard people, and I must admit, I haven't used this term myself, but I've thought it in my mind a couple of times. If they're able to keep this nucleus together, and they're doing a hell of a job of doing it, if they're able to keep this nucleus together for the next 5 years, could we be possibly using the D word here? I'm not going to say it. You know what D word I'm talking about. But you got to win. One more Super Bowl, and then I'm going to start using that word. Not yet, though. Too early for me. Too early for those lips that you see in front of you to utter those words. But it's just, hey, again, more food for thought. You wipe the table off. Do the dishes while you're there, too. So, hypothesis. If Russell Wilson continues to have a steady hand, while the ground game and defense and home field advantage remain superior, then the Seattle Seahawks will end up in the NFC Championship game. You notice what I did there? Do you notice what I did there? I bypassed the NFC West and went straight to the NFC Championship game. Because if the running game and the defense are dominant, like they were last season, if you are home field dominant again, and you did lose last year, which is a surprise. Surprise! But you were still 7-1. I could easily see you getting back to 8-0. 7-1 again, that's fine. And if Russell Wilson continues to have a steady hand at the quarterback position, not turning it over, completing passes on third down, and just being a calming influence on this offense, you're going to win this division, and you're going to end up in the NFC Championship game. You see what I just did there? That's how good this team is. They can bypass all of the nonsense, all of the intricacies of getting to the NFC Championship game. They can bypass all of that and just get there. They're that good. But you do have to go out and play the football games. And you do have to have all of the things I just mentioned. Russell Wilson playing steady and competent football. You do need home field advantage. You do need to have the defense and the run game be as dominant as they were a season ago. Those are a lot of things. But if anybody's capable of doing that, it's the Seattle Seahawks. So you go to materials needed. Dangerous. Russell Wilson. Dangerous. He was dangerous last year. And I kept waiting and waiting for him to fall off, for him to have that moment where he just couldn't get his footing, where he was a little cloudy and the judgment was a little off. And he had that 3-interception game and the Seahawks went down. And maybe they had a little rough patch where he was struggling, couldn't find the right groove. Seahawks lose 2 games out of 3. I was waiting for that period to come. It never came. It never came. Even when he wasn't on his best behavior, defense took care of it, and he did just enough to win. He was money last year. And if you're going to continue, and again, you don't ask him to do that much, but what you do ask him to do, he does it to the best of his abilities, which is better than 95% of the league. So, this kid's great, man. You hit the jackpot on this one. And you're going to have to pony up the dough. You know that. You know, this is your last year of getting cheap labor, and then you're going to have to pay the man. But until then, if you're looking to repeat, you're going to need dangerous Russell Wilson to be dangerous. L.A.B. Doom. Legion of Boom. Doom. They have coined the phrase Legion of Doom, or excuse me, Legion of Boom, and they have went out and single-handedly forced the NFL to reassess how things are done on the defensive side of the football. That's when you know you're great. When you get rules made up because you're so dominant to slow you down. Before, it was Ty Law and the New England Patriots. And it always seems to be the case when somebody roughhouses Peyton Manning and company. It was Ty Law and the Patriots back in the early 2000s, so they started implementing illegal contact. Remember, they didn't used to be a 5-yard illegal contact penalty. Used to could rough guys up until the ball was in the air, then you had to let them go. It didn't used to be a 5-yard buffer zone where you had 5 yards to jack them up and then you had to let them go. You used to be able to jack them up 10, 15, 20 yards down the field. As long as the ball wasn't in the air, oh, there was no penalty. No harm, no foul. Then the Patriots jacked up the Colts and Peyton Manning in the playoffs a couple of years, and they said, all right, enough's enough. We got to stop this. They implemented illegal contact. Now they've taken it a step further. You go and you jack up Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl, put 43 points on their skull, only give up 8, make them look pedestrian. The greatest NFL offense of all time, you made them look pedestrian. So now everybody else has to pay because you were so dominant. Legion of Boom Doom. You need to do that again. Be dominant again, because if this team is going to go back to where they were last year, this secondary has to be one of the driving forces for that. Legion of Boom Doom. Seattle Speedway. Zoom! 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 NASCAR unit. We saw those boys last year. Remember them? When Seattle would put 4 guys on the defensive line that could all get pressure on the quarterback. Well, some of those guys are no longer on the team. Most notably, Chris Clemens, gone. He's in Jacksonville. So, I still need to see the NASCAR unit. And I know you still got enough guys. You keep a bag full of guys that can get to the quarterback. So, I know you can reach in the bag and grab a couple of guys out. But, no Chris Clemens. And Bruce Irvin is coming off of an injury. So, do you have enough stuff to keep the Seattle Speedway going, man? I like watching the NASCAR unit, man. You know, I'm not a guy that'll sit down and watch the Indy 500, but I'll watch the Seattle Speedway. So, go out, get it done, and keep putting pressure on quarterbacks. You had 44 sacks last year. But it's not just the sacks alone that gets it done. It's also the fact that you're getting pressure on these quarterbacks, forcing errant throws. Don't think for one second that the Legion of Boom is responsible for those 28 interceptions by themselves. Oh, no, it's not just the Legion of Boom handling business. It's also that front 7 and primarily that front 4 getting to the other team's quarterback and forcing the issue, forcing errant throws, making them make mistakes that are costly, that they have to pay for. So, I need to see the Seattle Speedway once again in 2014. Bust them up. Bust them up with the run game, man. This running game is vicious. And anytime you play the type of defense that you play and can run the football the way that you run it, you can pack that up, take it anywhere. Oh, you need to go to Green Bay? You need to go to San Francisco? Huh? You got to go to New Orleans? You can pack that up and take it anywhere, man. That stuff travels. Bust them up. Keep busting teams in the mouth. Smacking them in the lip. Black their eye. Go ahead, blacken it up. Bust them up with the run game. Don't stop. You got 3 backs that are capable of starting in this league. Use them all if necessary. Bust them up with the run game. I like how you use Russell Wilson, personally. He doesn't need to be Aaron Rodgers. You don't need to sling it 37 times. If he can throw the ball 24 times, complete 18 of them for 197 yards and 2 touchdowns, because the run game is bludgeoning to death these teams around the league, I'm all for it. Sign me up. Sign me up. Bust them up. Remember you used to play the game Mercy, Mercy, Mercy? Remember, you grab it. Oh, mercy, mercy, mercy. Remember that? Percy, Percy, Percy. Percy, Percy, Percy. Gotta stay healthy, though, first and foremost. Gotta stay. When the dude is on the field, he's electric, man. He's a big play waiting to happen. Whether it's a jet sweep, it's a 9 route, it's a hitch, wide receiver screen. Don't put the boy back there on special teams. Don't put him on kickoffs or punt return. Don't do that. Don't do that. You put him on kickoffs. We saw what he did in the Super Bowl last year, man. Don't do that. Don't put the young fella on kickoffs, man, because that's cheating. That's what we call cheating. Don't do that. He's such a weapon. Gotta stay healthy, though. Look, I can't stress that enough. Gotta stay healthy, man. Gotta steer clear of the concussions and the headaches and all of that stuff. If he can do that, you're going to have teams screaming, Percy, Percy, Percy. Home, sweet home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. You wake up and you're in Seattle and it's a nightmare. That's what all the teams do when they go to Seattle. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. They open their eyes and they hope they're back at their home stadium. But they're not. They're not. And you can't escape. Nobody wants to go to Seattle, man. And you got to keep it that way. That aberration that was that Arizona Cardinals game last year, keep it that way. Keep it an aberration. Look, don't let teams come in the house, start winning, because then you lose the mystique. You lose the magic, and all of a sudden, it's nothing to go over to Seattle at CenturyLink and get a W. That can't be the case. Teams need to be, they're already afraid, keep them afraid of coming over there. I can tell you firsthand, I don't want any part of CenturyLink. I don't want any part of Seattle in Seattle. No part of it. Nobody does. I don't care who they are, how tough they are, or how good they think they are as a football team. I don't care if they play defense, if they got a run game, and they can travel. Nobody wants to come to Seattle. Nobody. And if you're the Seattle Seahawks, keep it that way. Independent variable, the defense. The success of this team hinges upon the defense. That's no secret. Yes, Russell Wilson has to play good football for you to win, but let's just say Russell Wilson has a subpar season. And subpar by his standards, he was 26-9 last year. Touchdown to interception. Almost a 3-to-1 ratio. Let's say subpar for him is 18-12. Okay? If the defense is dominant, you can still win with Russell Wilson having a less than 2-to-1 ratio touchdown to interception. Because the defense is that good. So they're the independent variable. Now the dependent variable is Russell's workload. Because Russell Wilson right now doesn't have to overwork himself. With the way this offense is run, he can play within the framework of the offense. And the reason he can, it's two reasons. The defense is dominant and the running game works. It works. So Russell is able to take advantage of that, run play action fake. He's able to pick his spots, take his shots. He doesn't have to go out there and throw the football 41 times. But if this defense is not clicking on all cylinders, and all of a sudden teams find it a lot easier to score, guess what Russell Wilson has to do now? He's got to get that right arm warmed up because he's going to use it a heck of a lot. Maybe a lot more than you're comfortable with, too. Because the more you throw it, the more susceptible you are to turn the football over. You know that. That's not a secret. And to be honest with you, I don't know if you've got the receivers or not for Russell Wilson to be going out and chucking the football 35 times a game. And I know that's not going to be the case. Because even if the defense is struggling, I still expect you to be able to run the football. But if these offensive linemen aren't getting it done and they don't open up any holes and you can't run and the defense is struggling, Russell Wilson's going to have to up his workload. And I don't think anybody wants to see that. So the defense is the independent variable because if they do their job, then the dependent variable, which is Russell Wilson's workload, is going to be lightened. And that's what you want. You want Russell to continue playing the game the way he has been playing the game, because you'll win a lot of games that way. The constant. This is an easy layup. The 12th man. The fans of Seattle, they get it crump. All right, they get it hype. They turn up in Seattle. And I don't know if they're pumping noise into the stadium or not. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's loud as hell in Seattle. And you got the rain. I swear, you've got a Buffalo Wild Wings rain button somewhere in your control room of CenturyLink Stadium. I swear you got a Buffalo Wild Wings button. Oh, no. The San Francisco 49ers are driving for the game-winning touchdown. Boop. Press the rain button. Colin Kaepernick will throw a pick. Game over. Oh, no. The Arizona Cardinals are driving down the field for a game-winning field goal. Boop. Press the rain button. All of a sudden, ball slips through the holder's hands. You win the game. That's Seattle, man. You don't want to go there. It ain't nothing nice about Seattle, man. It ain't nothing nice. And the 12th man is a huge part of that. And I love the tradition of pulling the flag up and having somebody in Seattle sports lore be the one to pull it up. It's good stuff, man. It's great stuff. I love it. The 12th man is the constant in Seattle. So that takes us to our conclusion. What does this all mean for the Seattle Seahawks? This is a good football team, man. A damn good football team. And I've already said this on another program, that I expect the Seattle Seahawks to end up in the NFC Championship game. Question now becomes, is that game in Seattle or not? And you have the answer to that. You, Seattle, have the answer to that. And the answer to that is the first game of the season, Thursday night. Kick off Thursday. When you take on the Green Bay Packers. You win that game at home, you'll see that same Packers team in the NFC Championship game in Seattle. You lose that game, and I think Green Bay can get you. That's a scary bunch. If they get you, then you'll be hightailing it out to Wisconsin. And you know you don't want any part of the Packers in January. It's going to be cold, probably going to be snowing. Now, I know you could get it in the snow. That's probably no problem for you. But why? Why? Why do that? Why make it harder on yourself when you could just stay at home? There's no place like home. Remember that. Home sweet home. All in all, 13-3 for this Seahawks football team. 5-1 in the division. I just see this team just remaining dominant. Now, the schedule is much tougher this year. The schedule makers did them no favors, including an early week 4 bye. That's ugly. So it's a tough slate of games for you, and you've got some tough stretches on your schedule. But if you take care of business, if you're the football team that you were a season ago and that I know you can be in 2014, you'll have no problem navigating your way through this treacherous stretch of football that you have in 2014. And so that wraps up the series. I thank each and every single one of my viewers for supporting me during this series. It's been a long one, but it's been fun. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the Lab Room. I thank you for joining me. Enjoy the college football. You know it's football time when we start getting college football. Thursday football coming up. You got Saturday college football. And then it'll lead us right into next week when the NFL gets it underway. So enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the festivities. You'll be seeing my face a couple of times throughout the rest of the week, giving you updates on the channel. And then we have the brand new In the Lab Room Louie Tee Network debuting September 1st. Have a good one. See you then. Like the content? Want more? Sub up.